I'm Marty Moore, owner and driver of the HEMI Express Wheel Standard. Welcome to my Hot Rod Garage. Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of Marty's Hot Rod Garage. I apologize guys, I get busy and I'm not much on this YouTube stuff. I'm trying to do better, but I get busy and then I get working on stuff and then I get done. I think, man, that'd make a good episode. I should have filmed that. So let me show you what I've been working on here that's been kind of giving me fits. I got this wagon here, the 65 Plymouth Belvedere wagon. And it's got a 528 HEMI in it. 528 HEMI. And I was having fuel issues. All kind of fuel issues. The car was running good, but it's like when it wouldn't idle. It was just loading up and it would just, you know, you couldn't even run it in the garage. It would gas you out of here. So it was like way rich and I couldn't figure out what was going on. So I started chasing stuff and I thought it was a fuel pressure regulator. I didn't have a gauge on it. You can see back here, this thing's got, we've got two regulators on it. This thing's got a 200 nitrous shot on it. So this regulator here is running the carbs just for driving. This one here is hooked to the solenoids and another electric fuel pump for the nitrous, but this one's only in play when the nitrous is engaged. So this is the one here that we was working on, and I'm kind of backtracking here. I've got this running now, so I'm going to tell you what we done when we was troubleshooting this thing. It's got the Carter ABS2 carburetors on it, and these things are only supposed to see about 6 pounds max. So, and I was pretty sure I had a fuel pressure problem, so that's what we started addressing. So I'll show you what we got into. And guys, I'm not trying to be a know-it-all and show you, hey, I know all this stuff. I'm just a redneck hillbilly, and I'm learning as I go, and I'm just showing you, hey, this is what we done, this is what we found. So hopefully it'll help somebody out. All right guys, I'm going to try to walk you through here of what we done. Here, I didn't have all this stuff when I was working on this, so this is after. I thought I had a bad fuel pressure regulator, which was this one right here that was on the car. So I went and bought a new one. Brand new fuel pressure regulator right here. All shiny, ready to go. So we put this one on and fired the car up. Same issue, it didn't seem to fix anything. The car runs great, you take it out and run it, it ran great, wouldn't idle, just loading up like it was getting way too much fuel. So what we done was we wound up taking the carburetors off, and like I say, there were those Edelbrock, which they're the old Carters, the ABS2s. They're only supposed to have like 6 pounds max fuel pressure. And 5 is about where we wanted to run them. So, like I say, we put this one on, it acted the same way. So we pulled the carbs off because, I mean, actually you put a new part on, then you start looking elsewhere. So, took the carbs off, checked the jetting on the carbs, float level was off a little bit, set the float level on the carbs, put the carbs back on. Still had the issue, so then we went into the fuel pump. It's got a Holly Blue pump on it, which the Holly Blues, they put out about 14 psi. So it's got a bypass on it, like a, I guess it's called a bypass. Took that apart, you know, checked the pump out and made sure that everything was working properly. Anyhow, just really, I mean, this thing give us fits. We couldn't figure out why it was doing what it was doing. So let me show you what we figured out. My neighbor John finally came over, and he had another pressure regulator. He said, well, let's put this one on and see what it does. So let me show you what I've done here. So what I'm going to do here, I've got a regulator here. I'm going to hook my regulator up. going to put, get here where you can see this thing. I'm going to put that Holly blue, will put out like 14 pounds. So I'm going to try to put 14 pounds on this thing. Oh, guy, I can't see very well. There's coming up. There's about 10. All right, that should be close to 14 right there. Pretty close. So that gives us, we got 14 pounds air pressure on here now. All right, so what I'm going to do here, I'm going to try to test these regulators. I don't know if I can do this or not. Some people say, oh, you're an idiot. You can't just test them with air. You got to have fluid going through them. So I said 4 to 5 pounds. According to the Edelbrock manual here for those carbs, it's supposed to 4 to 5 minimum, maximum not to exceed like 6 pounds. So these things won't handle what a Holly will. So what I'm going to do, this is the old regulator here. This is my old regulator. I made a fitting here. I'm going to screw this in on the bottom so I can put the air to it. I'm going to plug one side of this. This is the plug. I got a little gauge here to put in on this side. Okay, now I should be able to, I know I've got 14 pounds on this. So there we go. Over here. Okay, here see on the gauge, I'm showing about 10 pounds. So I should be able to decrease that by adjusting my gauge here. And there you see my gauge is not, I've got this thing screwed almost all the way out. Somebody's calling me, I better see who that is. See that? That should be going down. This just doesn't feel right. So what I'm going to do now, like I say, this is the one that was on there. So I'm going to replace the diaphragm in this one. I'm going to put a new diaphragm in here, which I just got from Holly. I just got this from Holly. It's got 2 springs in it. It's got, see what it says, the red spring, I think. I can tell this the weaker. Plain spring is high pressure, the red spring is low pressure. So. Now the spring, this thing's got pressure on it, guys. So you millennials will probably want to put this in a vise. You old school guys like me, you'll just put your thumb against it like that and hold it, because we're tough. right, guys, so what I'm doing here now, see, these things there's nothing to these things. It's just a diaphragm and a spring. And then zoom in here, Ron. What this is, see, the little diaphragm just pushes down on that, and then your spring goes on top, and that's what adjusts your pressure. So there's really nothing to these. So what I want to see, and like I say, that Holly Blue puts out 14 pounds. So right now I know I have 14 pounds on here. So, and you see that's holding. See my gauge here? So this little ball right here, see that? If I push down on that, let me get a smaller screwdriver here. See this little ball right here? If I push down on that, that's what regulates the pressure going through there. So now we've seen how it acted. Let's put the new diaphragm in. Whoop, here's the old one, the old spring. So we're going to put this new diaphragm in. It goes in here just like this. We're going to put the new spring on just like that. And this goes down, and like I say, I don't want to make you millennials mad, but us old guys, you millennials would have to put this in a vise to do it. Us old guys, we just mash it down there, hold it with their thumb. So that'll get a lot of people calling me, won't it, saying, hey, what are you talking about? Just kidding, guys. But us old guys are tough. Look there at my finger. I flipped a guy off a couple weeks ago. He said, show me that finger again, see what happens. Well, I did, and you see what happened. He said, you want to show me the other one? I said, no, and I put the other hand in my pocket. I didn't want no more of that. Now let's put our 14 pounds on it again. Okay, now look at our gauge with the new diaphragm in there. Now let's see if I go to adjust this. Oh, look at that. See the pressure coming up as I'm increasing that? And see the pressure going down? Are you catching that on the thing, Ron?
Yes, sir. 4.5 it is, about 4 3/4, 5.
Okay. So there's 5. So that's how the pressure regulator should work. This is the old one. That phone really bugs me sometimes. That's the old one with a new with a new diaphragm in there. So now we know that that is working properly. Guys, I ain't gonna lie to you, this thing was kicking my butt. I mean, the gauge, I thought maybe the gauge, I even went and bought another gauge. I bought because I thought maybe I got a bad gauge because that pressure was all over the place. I was up on wit's end, I didn't know what to do. All right, guys, here's another thing that I'm figuring out. See my gauge here? This is a liquid-filled gauge. These are more money and they're supposed to be more accurate. When we put this on, I was noticing with the new regulator, my pressure was all over the place and I couldn't figure out why. Well, here they tell you on these, and I'm reading, this is off the internet, it says a liquid-filled fuel pressure gauge can be susceptible to heat and may not work consistently when it's hot. The gauge's case is filled with a liquid, usually glycerin, that seals the gauge. When the gauge heats up, the glycerin expands, which increases the internal pressure and can cause the needle to fall 1 psi for every 1 psi of pressure rise. In extreme cases, the gauge may read 0 psi. So guys, that's exactly what happened. We was tuning this thing. I had it under the hood. So these, I don't care what people tell you. I'm showing you what happened to me. These things in the heat they're not accurate. So this either has to be remote mounted or get a dry gauge and put on it, which is what I have now, whichever way you want to go. So anyhow, so let me show you what we found. This, you see how this gauge acted now with, you know, fully adjustable. When I put the pressure to it, 5 pounds, it's not exactly 5. Let me turn it a little bit. That's it, ain't it? Right at 5 pounds. So that's how it should act. So now, here is the brand new one that I had bought and put on, which was the first thing that I thought was the problem. I know when to cue it back in. All right, guys, so here, now we know, here's our this is the brand new regulator, brand new that I just bought. So let's put this on. Look at my pressure here now. See where it's at? Now let's try to adjust it down. See what happens. Are you seeing that? So let's get it down to the 5 pounds that it's supposed to have. So see here, I can take this screw clear out, and it has no effect. So this pressure regulator is not doing its job. You can clearly see it's no better than the one that we took off. There you can see it's showing line pressure no matter what I do to this regulator. So I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, guys, I don't know how many times I'm going to let this bite me in the butt before I learn my lesson. Look here. Look right there. Made in China. Made in China. So I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, why you keep buying that cheap China crap? Okay. Right here is brand new Holly, brand new. Let's look at it. Made in Thailand. So guys, what's happening with this here? Even if you buy brand name stuff, you know, you buy Holly, you buy Elderbrock, just because you have a new part doesn't mean it's a good part. You know, and what this cost me was about 3 or 4 days work, because when you replace what you think it is, and that's not it, you move on to the next thing. Like I say, we pulled the carburetors off, we rebuilt the carburetors, we set the float levels. That didn't fix it. We moved to the fuel pump. We thought we had a problem with the fuel pump. We worked on that, and come to find out, we were right. Our first diagnosis was the fuel pressure gauge, but when we put a new one on and it acted the same way, we thought, well, it's got to be something else. So this is getting to be a real problem, guys. These parts, anything basically that can be rebuilt, starters, alternators, this stuff that we're getting from overseas is junk. And I don't know what the answer is. I'm just telling you, I'm just kind of venting and rambling a little bit. So anyhow, my neighbor John, let me see that camera, my neighbor John, he had an old one, an old Holly. So we put the old Holly on there, and we put a dry gauge on. My buddy Ron had a gauge. We put a gauge. So now I've got it set at 5 pounds. Everything's working great. We'll the weather clears up, we'll fire it up here in a little bit. Maybe take it for a ride and show you. All right, here we go. Test this thing now. I'm just going to turn the fuel pump on. Now let's see what kind of pressure we got out here. See that? 5 pounds, holding straight at 5 pounds. That's how a fuel pressure regulator is supposed to work. So now we'll fire this puppy up and see what we got going on. Oh no!
Well, here we are, guys. Looks like Marty was heading to the car show. Looks like he only made it this far. Called me. This is Ron. I had to go take him home so he get the car trailer and the little rig. So much for all that horsepower in them Mopars. Let's go see if we can figure out maybe what's wrong with it. Yeah. Said he got on a little bit too much. Maybe let's just take a look underneath here. Oh, what's that? Looks like a drive shaft fell out of it. Huh.
A couple times, and then when he got on here,
What'd he do?
he jumped on it a couple times, and then when he got on the highway here, he jumped on it and it let loose.
It just fell apart.
Yep.
Yep. Now we're sitting on the side of the highway like roadkill. So what's it look like under here? Let's get a close-up shot. It looks like a U-joint's gone. Yeah, looks like if he just got a U-joint, we could have put in it and saved all this trouble and time. Hey, there comes our tow rig now. Yep. Yeah, that's what's he call that? The little big rig or something like that, or the little whatever he calls it.
guys, remember, don't try this at home. We're highly trained idiots. All right,
You know what they say?
All right, so we're going to inspect the carnage here. We got this thing up on the rack. So here's what we got. I don't know what failed. I don't know if the U-joint failed or if the yoke broke. It didn't treat things good, but it don't look like we heard anything up here. That looks good in there. I took that out. And unfortunately, I think the yoke on the rear end, it broke the, yeah, see right there on the edge, it broke that yoke. So I have to put a new yoke. That's a Dana rear end, so that's pretty tough. But I got by pretty good. I mean, it beat that tunnel up a little bit, which you guys are saying, what an idiot, you should have had a loop on it. Well, we probably will put a loop on it after this. So I will be making a trip over to see my friend Terry over at Henderson Driveline about getting a new drive shaft made up, and who knows, maybe I can even talk him into one of those new carbon fiber ones. Wouldn't that be nice? Stay tuned. We'll get this thing back on the road.